PlayStation VR is an affordable introduction to quality VR. Many of the experiences aren't as crisp as the ones found on the Oculus Rift or HTC Vive, but, for a system that uses a PS4 instead of an expensive PC gaming rig, we're not complaining. 4. Affordable. Near PC quality performance. Good selection of games. Against. Doesn't come with required accessories. Poor job sealing out light. Spotty motion controller tracking. With the PlayStation VR, the world of virtual reality has made its way to consoles in a big way. Previous headsets have not only been expensive themselves, but have also required expensive gaming PCs to have enough power to run them. Sony is still positively committing to its VR development teams, with great-looking games like Blood and Truth and Moss now waiting in the wings, as well as big-budget ports of the likes of Skyrim and Doom. A revised headset has also been announced, which should address the original headset's lack of HDR pass-through. The future's bright for Sony's VR gear. The PlayStation VR is different. Not only is the headset itself much cheaper than its competitors, but it also only requires a PS4 console to run. Frankly, it's remarkable that such an affordable solution is as capable as it is. It has its problems, but by and large PlayStation VR proves that not only is console VR viable, but it's actually enjoyable, too. Before we go on talking about PlayStation VR's finer points and foibles, let's get the basics out of the way. This left the system being sold in two varieties: the basic PlayStation VR package that only included the PSVR system, headphones and all cabling required for $399, €399, £349, or $549, and a PlayStation VR launch bundle which included the PSVR system, PlayStation Camera, 2 PlayStation Move motion controllers, and a copy of PlayStation VR Worlds for $499, about £390/655 Australian dollars. If you didn't already own the PlayStation Camera or Move motion controllers, the launch day bundle was the better bet, but a year on and the bundles, and messaging around exactly what components you'll need, are much better. Besides the PlayStation VR unit itself and the PlayStation Camera, all you'll need is a PS4, the recently released Slim version, the 3-year-old original or the ultra-powerful PS4 Pro will do, a PS4 DualShock 4 controller and a 6-foot by 10-foot playspace that's well lit, but not too bright. Setting up the unit can be done in a matter of minutes and the provided instructions offer a clear visual guide to get you up and running. How does PlayStation VR work? Like other virtual reality headsets on the market, PlayStation VR has the arduous task of completely immersing you in a video game by producing 2 images simultaneously and then sending them to a headset a few feet away. But unlike the competition who require expensive graphics cards to get the job done, PSVR can do it using only the PlayStation 4's built-in GPU. It achieves this by using the PlayStation Camera to track 9 different points of light on the headset and the lights on either the Move controllers or on the DualShock 4, depending on which game you're playing. But the real bummer here is that because Sony only uses 1 camera instead of 2, it's harder for PlayStation VR to track you if you get up and walk around than it is for a system like the HTC Vive, which can offer true room-scale VR. That said, it still can support you if you decide to get up and wander around, but don't expect to take more than a few steps in any direction without a warning from the system that you're straying too far away. To that end, most PlayStation VR games can recommend that you stay in one of 2 positions, either sitting down or standing up and stationary. If you're prone to motion sickness, sitting down might be a bit more comfortable. However, certain games are definitely better played on your feet. Depending on where and how you angle your camera, switching between the 2 might not be so easy, so it's best to find an angle that covers the majority of the room in case you want to switch from one to the other without having to get up, move the camera and recalibrate. But let's back up. Up until now, the words VR and virtual reality have been thrown around a lot without much explanation. VR has existed in one form or another for decades, But the modern version of the technology is more immersive and less nausea-inducing than it's ever been. In more or less words, virtual reality is just that, a virtual world that gives you the experience of being somewhere else in a different time, at a different place, sometimes as far as an alien world, all without ever leaving your home. If you want to be specific about it, PlayStation VR can handle 1080p games on its 920x RGB x 1080 OLED display at either 90 Hz, meaning that the image refreshes itself 90 times per second, or at 120 Hz depending on the VR game or application. And for those concerned about latency, Sony says that PlayStation VR's response rate is locked in at around 18 ms, which is about 0.002 seconds faster than the highest acceptable latency before you would notice the lag in VR. PlayStation VR on PS4 Pro. With additional processing power, the PS4 Pro is capable of creating an even more immersive virtual reality experience for the games that support it. The improvements PS4 Pro promises can take many forms, from more detailed textures to better draw distances, and even a small reduction in graininess. The advantages differ from game to game, and PS4 Pro is currently set up to only support games where the developer has enabled Pro Mode, a hardware-boosting technology that tells the PS4 to use extra processing power. The head-mounted display, HMD, screams minimalism with a tag team of black and white matte plastic touches. Its final iteration is interspersed with 7 front-facing blue lights that the PlayStation camera picks up to track your location and head movement. For games that require you to turn around, Sony stuck 2 more blue lights on the back of the strip, bringing the total number of trackable lights to 9. The PSVR secret to comfort is that it hangs all of its weight at the top of your dome, putting less pressure on the bridge of the nose and the forehead. Where other headsets start to feel heavy after an hour or so of use, I felt that I could wear Sony's for hours on end without getting that all too familiar neck fatigue. To seal out the light, Sony has installed a rubber flap that encircles the visor. While they're moderately effective at blocking out the incoming light on your left and right, the way the headset is constructed leaves a massive gap in between your nose and the headset, which allows light into the screen and can be pretty distracting when you're trying to lose yourself in the virtual world. Inside the headset is a 5.7-inch OLED screen with a 1920x RGB x 1080 resolution. The PlayStation VR offers a 100-degree field of view, a 120 Hz refresh rate and latency less than 18 ms, which means that it's less nausea-inducing than previous versions of the headset that had a higher latency and a slower refresh rate. The PSVR's control scheme utilizes a combination of head movements made with the HMD, along with the PlayStation Move controllers and DualShock 4 controller that you may or may not be familiar with. The Move controllers had their first run when they were introduced alongside a few Wii-like titles on the PlayStation 3, and while they worked well there, it wasn't until PSVR that we saw a true purpose for them. Performance and content library. VR competitors like Oculus and HTC have set the bar quite high for how a good VR experience should look and feel, which, considering these two options require a seriously powerful gaming rig that costs 2 or 3 times as much as PSVR, makes sense. Despite having a smaller field of view than the Oculus Rift by about 10 degrees, 110 versus 100, the PlayStation VR surprisingly rarely made me feel nauseated, due in no small part to the 18 ms latency that made experiences mostly smooth without discernible lag or judder. As for the games themselves, we've so far been impressed with what PlayStation VR provides. Batman, Arkham VR, Battlezone, Star Wars, X-Wing VR and Job Simulator are excellent bite-sized experiences. Meanwhile, Resident Evil 7 is playable in its entirety in virtual reality, which is probably one of the longest virtual reality experiences to date.